want your share? Oh boy, you ain't got no share to get. I put some love in this sport, just a serious whirler. No man, taste nothing like this yet. Not a single word, I won't be heard.
Tonight, a murder taking place this afternoon, pushing the country's count to 126. Also, Sam Bankman-Fried is granted a bail hearing for early next year. And later, Village Road businesses say they're on the brink of closure as construction continues. Eyewitness News starts now.
Eyewitness News is brought to you by BTC. Link up for a BTC Christmas today.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Janae Noel. Thanks so much for joining us. The country's murder count reaching an alarming rate as another man was shot and killed today, pushing the count to 126. Our Devontae Hanna live at the scene moments after that shooting incident. He has the details in our top story tonight.
A man is dead and police now on an island-wide manhunt for his perpetrator. The bloody murder occurring on Broadfield Road around 3 this afternoon.
The victim had pulled up to a residence on Broadfield Road when he was accosted by a lone gunman who produced a firearm and shot him several times. He ran east on Broadfield Road and then north onto St. Anne's Crescent where he collapsed. This gunman was seen getting into a black vehicle, which we believe is a Nissan type model, where he made good his escape.
The incident now leaving the victim's family members overwhelmed with emotions as they embrace each other and residents of the quiet area shaken.
For the 30-some years that I've been living here, never happened, never. It left me feeling a little insecure now. Because for so many years we've lived here peaceful, nothing happened, and then for all this excitement, all of a sudden it's leaving me insecure and worried about what's next.
This latest incident now raising concern for residents and, of course, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, as this incident now brings the country's total homicides for the year to 126, the highest on record since 2015. Obviously, police at this time now doing their best to ensure that they can get this crime fight under control.
Well, again, we look at crime trends and we always tweaking our strategies when it comes to crime fighting. But I would like to say that I know we look at the amount of murders, but I want us to look at the way that we are solving these matters with the assistance of the public.
It was a joint operation between the Royal Bahamas Police and Defense Forces, a sign, according to officers, that crime is everyone's fight.
And so we need all hands on deck when it comes to this crime fight, including the members of the public.
The country's bloodiest year on record was back in 2015 with 146 homicides in that year alone. With 2 weeks left to go in 2022, the country's murder count now at 126. Devontae Hanna, Eyewitness News.
In other news tonight, FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried has filed for a new application for bail before the Supreme Court. Eyewitness News can confirm tonight that the bail application was set to be heard on or before the Supreme Court on January 17th of next year. Now, FPS was denied bail by the Magistrates Court on Tuesday and remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections by Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt. His legal team today telling a local daily that, quote, their client won't sit in prison and chill. Leah Cooper joining me live in studio with more on this. Leah?
Janaea, Bankman-Fried faces up to a triple-digit sentence behind bars in the United States if he's found guilty of the high-powered financial charges against him. Now, we know that prosecutors for the Southern District of New York this week alleged that SBF conspired with others to commit wire fraud, commodities fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. Attorney Kieron Maynard tells us tonight what could come up next for the ex-crypto giant.
Now, based on the level of charges that he essentially faces in the United States, he's looking at, from what I've read, if the court system finds him guilty, then he's liable up to 115 years, but that's on the consecutive basis. If they were to break it down on the concurrent basis, then it would be essentially less.
The Bahamas hasn't formally placed any charges before the court with respect to SBF. He was actually arrested this past Monday night on a provisional warrant as the United States seeks his extradition. Maynard explains that a part of the criteria for that process is to have an offense that's mutually recognized in both jurisdictions. Now, SBF did indicate that he intends to fight extradition, but Maynard thinks this may be easier said than done.
Now, he would actually have to justify on his end why, he should not be extradited to face these charges in the United States. On his end, it's going to be an uphill battle with respect to that. I don't think it's going to be, as straightforward. I think it's going to be very challenging.
Now, as far as an appeal for bail goes, Maynard explains what's stacked up against him.
Now, even though he may not have strong ties to the Bahamas, I being family, and he hasn't been a very long time, that essentially does not disqualify him a right to bail, because there are systems in place to prevent or to alleviate the fear of absconding. For example, ankle monitoring, like things like that could obviously assist in his application for bail. So bail isn't essentially off the table. It's just an argument as to whether or not, if the government actually files formal charges against him, will he, abscond or disappear, or whether or not if he would actually appear for the extradition, process. So, he's still presumed innocent until proven guilty.
At last check, SBF was in the Bahamas Department of Corrections maximum security block in sickbay, awaiting recommendations from a doctor regarding his various health conditions. Add to that, Prison Commissioner Don Clare told us that despite the drastic change in scenery, Bankman-Fried seems to be in good spirits. Reporting live in studio, I'm Leah Cooper, sending it back to you, Janaea.
Thanks, Leah. Meantime, as the U.S. Senate Committee on the FTX fallout and its impact continued yesterday, Kevin O'Leary, who was a paid spokesperson for FTX but has now applied for membership on the FTX Creditors Committee, shared exactly which contributed to the company's rapid collapse.
For all the talk we say about Bitcoin and everything else, no institutions own this. I work for the sovereign wealth and pension plans. They don't touch this stuff because it's unregulated. Between these two, let's call them frenemies, because they obviously were potentially the two largest shareholders in the firm, they had a disagreement. They had a falling apart. Apparently, according to Sam Bankman-Fried, CZ would not comply with the regulators' request in these different geographies, these different jurisdictions, to provide the data that would clear them for a license. He withheld it, according to Sam Bankman-Fried. The only option the management and Sam Bankman-Fried had was to buy him out at an extraordinary valuation of close to $32 billion, less apparently a 15% discount. That stripped the balance sheet of assets. You ask me why it went bankrupt? Go to the last week. All of a sudden, in social media, CZ is asking for another $500 million.
Well, also during that hearing yesterday, U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis highlighted the core factors that caused the recent FTX bankruptcy, the 10th largest bankruptcy in U.S. history, and emphasized the need for regulation.
Though FTX was a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, it had a shocking lack of corporate controls and enabled affiliates to conceal the movement of money and take on enormous liabilities, enabling the they misused customer assets that were supposed to be appropriately safeguarded. FTX, in its terms of service, said title to customer digital assets always remain with the customer. Now that we know is a lie, and now millions of FTX customers around the world will suffer. So FTX is a failure of people, safeguards, and regulation. It's not a failure of technology. The people of the digital asset industry need to get really serious about risk management and compliance with things like anti-money laundering laws and That's why we've seen a failure of a number of firms engaged in riskier practices, even for the digital markets this year.
Well, as the country continues to come under fire after the downfall and subsequent investigation into crypto giant FTX, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Fred Mitchell, believes that the country's reputation will not suffer, as it's not anything new for the country, he says. Tyler Simonet has the details in this report.
Well, look, as I said before, it's all, been there, done that. This has all been done here before.
Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Public Service Fred Mitchell batting back at international media who continue to scrutinize the Bahamas. He describes the FTX ordeal as an overblown rhetoric and contends that the location of the company did not factor into its downfall.
It's a business failure. Business failures happen all the time. The jurisdiction in which the failure took place or has taken place has nothing to do with the actual alleged crimes or misdeeds. Fraud, for example, happens in any country. It doesn't turn on the jurisdiction. So it isn't useful, in my view, at this juncture to be wagging fingers saying this one's at fault and the next one's at fault. The fact is there was a business failure. We need to find out who is responsible.
Mitchell pushing that anyone affected by FTX should receive compensation within the confines of the law, and those responsible should be punished. He also admonishes those attempting to slander the Bahamas.
The Bahamas, 6 million or so American tourists come here every year. They enjoy great vacations. They have a good interchange with our people. There's no negative associated with it. So those who suggest that because this failure in some part happened in the Bahamas, that this somehow says something about our own people, I think those are misjudgments.
And as former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried awaits his extradition trial, Mitchell expresses that he has no worries that the Bahamas will be made into a public spectacle.
The Shah of Iran, after he was deposed, came to the Bahamas, and so this is the kind of country we have. We have a country which is small, but has an important reputation in the world. People come here. Our laws are good. The regulations are good. And we're sometimes in the spotlight. Anna Nicole Smith, that was another one. So it happens. John Travolta, it happens. So here we are again.
Tyler Simonet, Eyewitness News.
Well, Bahamas-born Jean Sean Charles has won the right to go back before the Supreme Court to apply for constitutional release over his 2017 detention and expulsion from the country. His case became a flashpoint with potentially far-reaching implications for how the country's immigration and citizenship laws are applied to people who are born in the country to non-nationals but have missed the constitutional window to apply for citizenship at 18. Now, Supreme Court Justice Gregory Hilton ruled back in 2017 that his detention and expulsion from the country were unlawful, that he was deprived of his personal liberty and falsely imprisoned in breach of his constitutional rights. However, the court has dismissed that appeal and Hilton's ruling due to what they call procedural issues. In a written judgment delivered today, the London-based Judicial Committee of the Privy Council granted the appeal, but only to the extent that his application for constitutional relief is put under the remit of the Supreme Court, as if the application had been made by a writ. Now, for more on this story, you can log on to our website, ewnews.com. Still from the courts tonight, a 74-year-old male of Grand Bahama sentenced to 10 years at the Bahamas Department of Corrections for unlawful sexual intercourse with his dependent. Now, the ruling was handed down in the Grand Bahama Supreme Court earlier this week, and during the initial arraignment, the mother reported that she awoke sometime around 11 p.m. in their home and did not find her husband in bed. It was alleged that she eventually found her, quote, on top of the minor, who was reportedly 8 years old at the time. Now, according to reports, the young victim alleged that it was not the first time that she had been sexually assaulted by the suspect, and he was also allegedly forcing her to have anal sex. Now, the minor also claimed that the accused was having sexual relations with her since she was 5 years old. The ongoing reconstruction process at Village Road leaving a sour taste in the mouths of business operators in that area who say government must now intervene to assist in managing business costs as they continue to experience a drop in profits. Jose Etienne has more on this.
As construction continues on Village Road, some businesses warn that they're about to close up shop. Meantime, others are voicing their concern over what they say has been a drastic drop in revenue due to the redevelopment of that thoroughfare.
Everybody's avoiding the area. So our sales are down 30%. The chiropractic business said they lost 70% of their revenue.
Business owners add that while revenue is dwindling, expenses continue to mount.
You haven't had much business for 7 months, but you're still collecting VAT. For example, in July, we had 6 sales.
We then face increase in BPL, increase in the minimum wage, which basically most bartenders make minimum plus tip. We've seen an increase in property taxes and other taxes. We've seen inflation go through the roof. Our expenses have actually gone up and will continue to rise through the year. So less revenue, increased expenses is really a formula for disaster for any business.
The road improvement project also having a crippling effect on business operations.
You're dealing with inaccessibility, power cuts, water cuts. I know Mrs. Pam Burnside, who's the owner of Dungle Lake Studios, she's without phone lines for probably 2 months. We're without a phone line right now, which is for our card reader, so you can't do sales transactions.
The ongoing project also forcing business owners to throw their hopes for the holidays out the window.
We just lost Christmas. Every business relies on the November, December period for a huge percentage of the revenue. That's gone.
Here on Village Road, a lot of work has yet to be completed. This as a number of trenches have yet to be filled and the roads still not paved. Now, despite the Works Minister Alfred Sayers asserting several days ago that this project will be completed by the end of December, these individuals say that timeline is simply unrealistic.
That September date was then changed to October, which was then changed to November, which was then changed to December 12th. That was then clarified to be substantially completed by the end of December. No way. Any layman would think that would be completed by December. But funny enough, we just happened to be listening to the radio this morning, and the chief engineer was on, and he said January.
At this point, they're proposing to the Davis administration an economic stimulus relief package which consists of the following.
Tax incentives such as business license, property tax, perhaps VAT incentives. We also requested some sort of grant. If you look outside, every last business either has damage to the pavements out front or the physical building due to all the dust and sediment. So everybody's going to have to paint and get their business back in order to accept customers.
Jose Etienne, Eyewitness News.
Well, another union is threatening industrial action tonight. This time, the Bahamas Nurses Union. The president claims her members have been left without pay for quite some time. This while they say foreign nurses have been given the royal treatment. Leah Cooper has more on this.
Bahamas Nurses Union President Amancio Williams threatens a strike if members aren't paid what's owed to them by December 2022's payday. In a release obtained by Eyewitness News, a disgruntled member of the union expresses that while Cuban nurses brought in to assist the depleting number of Bahamian nurses in country are being paid on time, Bahamian nurses haven't been paid for over a year.
The next step is that I have a strike certificate, and anything trying to take away the little power that the union have is only a strike certificate. They're only blocking from the tribunal, from the labor department. Tell them what to see about Williams, because my last one, the president, I can show them what the union's supposed to be like.
The union received a strike certificate back in June after conducting a strike vote earlier that month. Fast forward to now, Williams says she experiences this problem with salaries every year when dealing with new nurses.
This gives a bad feeling, a bad look on what the job offers. I can't keep nurses like this. When they go to the States, they get paid, their families put into schools, their husband finds jobs, and these nurses get university certificates, certifications, and stuff free. They don't have to wait a year. The nurses, I've had 5 registered nurses in the Department of Public Health not being paid for a whole year.
On top of that, Williams also adds that 2 clinical nurses have also not been paid over a year. And as health officials scramble to keep nurses in country, Williams says scores of nurses have left this year alone.
I've lost probably over, with everybody, probably about 60, 70 nurses and counting for the various institutions. You probably had like 20 or between 20 and 10 persons, and you got to count from every area. Okay, and the whole area, you probably have lost about 50 to 60 nurses. Not that these nurses here wants to leave, it's because of the way we do business, especially in DPH.
This as Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Darville told reporters earlier this month that they're in need of 30 specialty nurses, adding that health officials must find ways to keep the country's nurses at home, quote, by offering better packages and incentives, as other countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada try to recruit them. Darville tells us tonight that the ministry is working on processing the payments.
Now, I will reach back out to Madam President of the Union, discuss these individuals, and work very closely with her and payroll to resolve the outstanding situation with the remaining nurses who may not be on the existing payroll. But I want to make it very clear that the list was forwarded to our financial officer, who ensured that all of those who met the requirements in order for us to pay, their pay will be reflected on this month's pay sheet.
Darville adds that between 10 and 12 nurses will receive those funds this pay cycle, and health officials will come back to the table to sort out those who remain.
But one nurse who is being delayed is significant because they have families, and it puts them at a great disadvantage. Some of them have children, some of them have their own personal obligation, and sometimes stipend that they receive is not adequate to meet what is necessary. But we do feel the pain, particularly for those who may not show up on the pay sheet. But that has nothing to do with clerics. We have our certain guidelines from the Ministry of Finance of who we can pay from who we can't pay, and they have to meet that criteria. But all who met the criteria, I can assure you that they will show up on this month's pay sheet, which I think is on Monday.
Leah Cooper, Eyewitness News.
Well, the government today entering into a new agreement set to bring a new development and a sizable number of jobs to South Abaco. Lorencia Smith has the details in this report.
Government has added another investment to its portfolio and inked a nearly $800 million memorandum of understanding with Kinko South Abaco Development. Central and South Abaco MP John Pinder praising the multifaceted investment project, which he says will provide jobs for thousands of Bahamians.
You'll hear more about it as time goes, but this project is all developed on private land. Over $800 million of development will be put on this private land, and it is a good project. It is a sound project, and is a sustainable project of room keys. It has a marina that will be able to accommodate boats up to 250 feet, which goes in line with the ever developing and increasing demand for yachting facilities.
The nation chief and deputy prime minister was also on hand for the signing at the office of the prime minister this morning. Now, senior trustee Steve Harrell tells us that he bought the 7 acres of land some 15 years ago with a vision.
That we are in their corner. I've slept in the homes of the people in Sandy Point. I know everybody down there. We go down there frequently, and I've made promises as to what our family trust would do for South Abaco.
Developers expressed their excitement and optimism about the project. However, they say everything comes with a challenge.
We had a world economic crisis that shut everything down for 6.5 years. We had a minor legal issue that came up that also took 6.5 years to work through the Bahamian court system.
Now, there is no official start date for when the project will start, but according to developers, it will take about 7 to 10 years for the phased project to be completed. So what will the property look like?
A residence club, a golf course on High Bank Bay. The houses that will be built are going to be surgically implanted, if you will, onto their respective properties, so they look like they've been there.
The Deputy Prime Minister, who also serves as the investment minister, had this to say about the development.
Going to be a boost for the entire economy that's going to build around this resort in South Abaco. So this is going to be magnificent.
Laurencia Smith, Eyewitness News.
Well, if you've got a news tip or if you've seen news in the making, call the Eye on News hotline at 397-6397. We also invite you to send your letters to the editor for publication on all of our social media platforms at eyewitnessnewsbahamas@gmail.com. And if you're watching on our Facebook or YouTube page, share your thoughts about today's stories in the comments section. Be sure to hit subscribe. We want to hear from you. We're just getting started in Eyewitness News tonight, but when we come back, will the economic future be merry and bright? We've got a forecast right after this. And later, the national flag carrier ascends to new heights. We've got more on that right after this break.
Distributed in the Bahamas by Jimmy's Wines and Spirits.
Welcome back. Here's a look at your Eyewitness News gas tracker, $5.97 at Esso. It's the same at Shell, $5.97. Rubis, 10 cents cheaper, $5.87. Welcome back. Well, as the country continues to deal with inflation, new fees, and rising costs, many are holding their breath on what the new year will bring. Our Laurencia Smith speaking with stakeholders today on what we can expect.
Will it be doom and gloom for the country's economic outlook for 2023? Well, economic consultant Shivago Lang telling Eyewitness News that in his view, the country's financial state will not change beyond what we're currently experiencing.
Economic growth would have slowed, for instance, from the initial stages when we started to turn the economy up and we were experiencing in 2021 growth of the order of 14%. I think in this 2022, we would have seen growth around 6-7%. I suspect that growth is going to slow, but that is a slowing growth that has to do with returning to a more normal economic situation for us.
Financial Secretary Simon Wilson has gone on record to say that the country's fiscal performance for the first quarter is very encouraging, while noting that his office does not see any reason why this positive outlook cannot continue. Wilson suggests a possible recessionary period in large due to inflation.
Inflation will return to normal, at least not in the first half of next year, but it should start to normalize. And by normalize, I mean we typically have inflation around 2% on an annual basis. We've seen 6%, 7%. That's certainly abnormal. I think we will see that trend go down as more and more pressure is put on inflation through Fed action and the action of other central banks around the world who operate in flexible exchange rate economies.
Meanwhile, throughout 2022, drivers saw the gas prices spiking to nearly $8 a gallon. However, in recent weeks, prices have stabilized. Vice President of the Bahamas Petroleum Retailers Association, Vasco Bastian, tells us that stakeholders are expecting that the stable trend will carry over into the new year.
There's no telling really what OPEC countries will do in the first quarter of the new year. You know, OPEC countries tend to, once they see the price of gas, or crude oil that is, was tied to gas, drop, they tend to then, put the clamps on the global economy or the global market in regards to crude oil, and then it'll rise. But for now, I think hopefully for the first quarter, it will continue to hopefully trend downwards.
Laurencia Smith, Eyewitness News.
Well, motorists can also expect some new fees at the Road Traffic Department come January. Now, we broke this story for you last week by the Ministry of Transport. They're now confirming as much in a press statement issued late this afternoon. Now, last week, a list of new fees at the Road Traffic Department was posted on the Transport Ministry's page, but was later removed from social media. New fees are applicable to B-class vehicles, the issuance and renewal of a commercial driver's license, the commercial driver's license test, general driver's license fees, and a list of other items. Now, a full rundown of those new fees posted on our website, ewnews.com. The Transport Minister, JoBeth Colby Davis, says the fees should come as no surprise.
We introduced the amendments to the legislation with the last budget. So that came in July 2022. And we did decide that we wouldn't roll them out until the new year because we were given some time for persons to get familiarized with the new process that are coming with road traffic. And so January was the date that was originally set. That was announced during the budget. And the information that was sent around was almost like a reminder that it's coming.
Well, Prime Minister Philip Davis also noting that the proposed increases were announced at the onset of the new fiscal period and asserted that his administration has also introduced new initiatives to cushion what some might feel are new tax burdens.
For example, like lowering customs duty on a number of issues, right? By raising the minimum wage, by ensuring that that merchants pass on the savings that we are implementing to the consumers by hiring more inspectors, and we have also been negotiating with shipping agencies to drop the tariff on the cost of bringing in containers. Those things have been done and being done. What is necessary is for those to be passed on to consumers to cushion whatever new taxes you might see.
Well, they don't just fly here, they live here, and they're also bringing home a prestigious award, the national flag carrier, Bahamas Air, snagging a recognition from the Caribbean Travel Awards program. Theo Seeley is on the story. He has the details in this report.
Bahamas Air gaining some new bragging rights this week after being named Caribbean Airline of the Year 2022. The Caribbean Travel Awards bestow the honor on the country's national flag carrier, and Aviation Minister Chester Cooper is singing its praises.
This is an exciting moment. Bahamas Air has an outstanding safety record. We have magnificent employees. We have had our share of challenges. But this is an opportunity for all Bahamians to celebrate.
Cooper says Bahamas Air has always been a source of great national pride and a key plank of the tourism product. He's excited for projected growth of the airline in the future.
Bahamas Air is going to do even more exciting things. One of the things noted in the award write-up was the new flight to Raleigh, North Carolina, direct to Freeport, and onward to Nassau. Bahamas Air is going to do even more exciting things in the future.
Bahamas Air's managing director Tracy Cooper says the award speaks to the great work that the airline's team is doing, and he's also expecting the new year to bring lots of good returns as well.
We have been striving to better ourselves. Obviously, the pandemic in 2020-21 had a very adverse effect on the airline. And ever since we started with the home porting of Royal Caribbean and Crystal Cruises in the summer of 21, we have steadily been growing the airline. For instance, in 2021, we carried somewhere around 440,000 passengers. In 2022, to the end of November, we had already almost doubled that, 717,000, and growing for the year.
This is actually the second award that the national flag carrier has won for the year. Bahamas Air also snagged the World Travel Awards 2022 Caribbean Leading Airline Award earlier this year as well. Theo Seeley, Eyewitness News.
Well, the Lynden Pinling International Airport also receiving a top award from the Caribbean Travel Award Program. LPIA has been listed as the best airport in the region for 2022. The Minister of Tourism and Investments and Aviation, Chester Cooper, says the commendation comes as no surprise.
LPIA is an outstanding airport. I've traveled around the Caribbean, and I knew all along that this was the award-winning airport in the Caribbean. Certainly it's the flagship of the Bahamas. We're going to be building more airports like this, not the size of LPIA, but other award-winning airports. So this is good as well for aviation. Aviation is really the oxygen for tourism. And if we can continue to win awards in Bahamas Air and in our airports, it will even strengthen the brand of the Bahamas abroad and locally.
Well, LPIA Operations Vice President Jonathan Hanna says a lot of hard work has gone into the rebound after the airport, after everything came to a standstill during the pandemic, but he tips his hat to all of the operational teams that have done what he says has been a stellar job in getting the country's main gateway the recognition it deserves.
We are excited to win the Caribbean Journal's Airport of the Year award. At this point in our recovery, we've been working extremely hard over the last 2 years to ensure that our passengers have a safe and efficient experience at the airport. And so this award is tantamount to the hard work not only by NAD, but by all of our airport partners. So we're truly grateful and looking forward to welcoming even more persons to our airport in 2023.
Coming up tonight in Eyewitness News, a woman on the gospel music scene sharing her testimony in our Jamming with Jose tonight. We've got that story, but first, here's a check on tonight's weather forecast.
This segment of Eyewitness News is brought to you by Lucayan Car Rental. Great rental, great service, and great cars.
Welcome back. Your live look tonight over Caves Village on West Bay Street, where the temperature is right around 73 degrees. Not much of a dip. 72 is your lowest tonight. This is Eyewitness News. Welcome back. We're jamming with Jose again tonight, and this time he tells us of a woman who's made her mark on the gospel industry, especially here in the capital. This despite having to deal with a major challenge. She tells us of how she was able to bounce back. Here's that report.
Arise and shine, for light has come. Glory of the Lord.
That's Nadine Moss. She's an acclaimed gospel artist who's based in Atlanta, Georgia, with roots here in the capital. She's known for her vibrant approach to praise and worship in churches and other gospel events. But she says her journey began as a singing toddler.
I have been singing from the age of 2, and God has blessed me enough to be in some rooms that I only dreamt of.
From there, she started to pursue a career in music, only to end up seeing her career take a different turn.
Been mentored by my siblings to go into the secular industry. I used to sing in the nightclub and all of that in New York, and the Lord saved me and crashed all of that.
It was at that point when Nadine says she decided to go full-time as a gospel artist, and she says it's been a journey ever since.
I was able to travel all over the United States, in the Caribbean, in South Africa. I was able to minister and sing with some gospel greats, in full gospel, and was able to record with some wonderful people. So I'm grateful.
Despite having lots of success as an artist, both locally and internationally, Nadine talks about having to face one of the most grueling experiences during her lifetime.
July 29th of 2021, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer.
But here's what she says kept her at peace.
My devotion that morning had led me to St. John chapter 11, 1 through 14. And it talked about when Lazarus was sick and his sisters, Mary and Martha, had sent word for Jesus. And when Jesus heard the news, he told the disciples that this sickness was not unto death, but that the Son of God may be glorified. And that is what gave me the courage and the strength to go through this whole cancer situation. That's what allowed me to sit up and listen to what the pathologist and the radiologist and all of them, what they had to say.
However, she says it was not a walk in the park.
Cancer on a whole has a stigma attached to it. And when you hear cancer, you only think of one thing, that it's going to be over. And so, and furthermore, I have friends and family members who have gone on from cancer. So your mind start wandering. So it's a warfare of the mind.
Nonetheless, her road to recovery began, and it was during an early morning at her residence when she had this life-changing encounter.
It had to be around the 3-4 o'clock hour. I began to worship deeply, and there was such a strong presence of God in the room, and I just felt fire burning all over my body. And it was a matter of days later when I had gone back to do my 4th chemotherapy that they did an ultrasound, and they could not find the tumor anywhere.
Nadine says that experience led to the birth of an event dubbed Worship Heals, and that's scheduled on December 16th at Agape Church.
We're going to worship until your diagnosis change, until your sickness is reversed, until that difficulty, whatever it is, that impossible situation that you're facing, that will turn around. Because if worship healed me, then worship will heal you. And I'm completely and totally convinced that if God did it for me, he will do it for you also.
Jose Etienne, Eyewitness News.
Thanks, Jose. Well, as we continue our series on the 12 days of Christmas, one business is helping those who lack some gift wrapping skills out. Tyler Simonet has the details in our feature tonight.
If your Christmas presents are looking great on the inside but not so much on the outside, It's a Wrap, a mobile gift wrapping service, is a service you need for this Christmas. Not only will they beautifully wrap your gifts, but if you find yourself too busy to visit the mall to shop, they can lend you a helping hand there too.
Well, our business model is convenience. So we're trying to cater to the busy individual who may not necessarily have the time to take off from work to shop, who may not even know what they actually want. They may just have a general idea. So our goal is to make sure that, one, they don't even have to leave the comfort of their home. So we're offering services where we go and we shop for the item for them. That's the personalized shopping. That's one of our best sellers. And then we offer on-site gift wrapping. If they don't want to leave their home and they just want us to come on-site, that's offered by our senior wrappers, which is me and my partner. We'll come to their location and we will wrap at their house, if, for example.
It's a Wrap has stations with their two partners, Alive and Aeropost, in the convenient locations of Harbor Bay and Cable Beach. Sasha Albury, one of the company's partners, believes a well-wrapped gift can express how much you care about a person and really put them in the holiday spirit.
Surprise starts from the moment you see the gift. So if it's cute and it's nice, it's in a bow, everything is good to go, then you're excited and you want to get into the holiday spirit, especially with the way life has been going these last few years. We've had COVID, and it's the first real Christmas where we're out and about. We want to bring that same excitement to your house. We want everybody to feel the love, basically. So that's why it's important.
And as far for the future of the company, Albury hopes to keep clientele up even after the holidays pass.
We hope to tap into that personalized shopping market. That's our top seller, especially for people who may not have the time, like I would have previously said, to go out and get their shopping done, especially with the traffic. The traffic is a killer. So we like to offer convenience, and we're hoping that in the future that could be our main market, along with the retail and on-site gift wrapping.
Tyler Simonet, Eyewitness News.
Thanks so much, Tyler. Well, still to come tonight, our Devontae Hanna has the latest in sports. Devontae?
Well, good evening, Janaea. Some not so good news for our Bahamian NBA star, DeAndre Ayton, who is facing an injury. We'll have all of the details right after this.
Comfort Suites Paradise Island is the best kept secret.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Hennessy, the spirit of sports in the Bahamas.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Eyewitness Sports. I'm Devontae Hanna. Well, the 2022 edition of the Hometown Lenders Bahamas Bowl kicks off in a matter of hours, and teams on both ends are ready to take the field. Today, the players participating in the annual kids camp designed to teach the basics of the game. The Bahamas Bowl kicks off at the Thomas A. Robinson National Stadium at 11:30 a.m.
It's been a real special week, especially for us. It being our last season here and being able to just come here and be with the guys, especially at like a place like this. It's just really special to come here and be able to enjoy yourself and have that camaraderie, that one last hoorah together, and there'd be no greater feeling to go out with a win. These have been some of the best years of my life, and these guys, they're friends that I'll have forever, and this is just a great place to be with those guys.
Meantime, some swimming action. All 4 Bahamian swimmers were in action yesterday, with 2 swimmers being featured in individual races. Lamar Taylor was in action in the men's 100 meters freestyle. He posed a time of 47.76 seconds to win his heat. However, that time wasn't fast enough for the semifinal, as he was the 36th finisher overall. Also, Victoria Russell in the pool, she competed in the 100-meter breaststroke. We'll have all of the details from the 16th annual FINA World Cup Championships to come. Well, DeAndre Ayton has officially been ruled out for tonight's game against the LA Clippers. The official injury is a left ankle sprain. There is no timetable in place for his return. Well, that's a look at sports. Once again, I'm Devontae Hanna. Stay tuned. More news is right after this.
You're watching Eyewitness News.
BTC and call it one and done. Link up with BTC and call it one and done.
I'm Corvell Pyfrom. Our Mission Week exercises took us everywhere this year. Our Grand Bahama and Abaco teams did not miss out on doing their part to be of service to their respective communities. On Grand Bahama, our team joined in with a cleanup campaign in the Garden Villas community. And in Abaco, we planted trees with students at the Patrick J. Bethel High School.
They have about 400 families that will be affected. Of course, we are still recovering from Hurricane Dorian that happened about 3 years ago. So we saw it fitting that we would come into the community and assist with cleanup. This is just one of the many ways that BTC is giving back this Christmas holiday. In honor of Mission Week, we're going to clean up the neighborhood, and we will be back on the 16th to distribute Christmas toys to the kids of the community.
Partnering is very important to urban renewal because we know that we can't do it all, and we always look for persons in the community to help us because we have a mandate that we are to make everyone in the country feel like they are a part. So by partnering with us, we can help these persons feel that they are a part of our community. So it's a pleasure to have the organizations that partner with us, especially today, BTC and the Kiwanis, and we're looking forward to many more initiatives like this in the future. Thank you.
Beats giving back and being of service to one's community. We're on a mission, and we hope you'll join us too. These are still the moments that move us. I'm Corvell Pyfrom. Happy holidays, everyone. Be well, and be back here next. BTC Connection.
Well, that wraps up news this Thursday, but coming up in Beyond the Headlines with Shanique Miller, she discusses all of today's top stories with some familiar faces. That's a show you don't want to miss. That's coming up in Beyond the Headlines. It starts right after this. That does it for us here at Eyewitness News. It's certainly been a pleasure having you in our company tonight. On behalf of the entire news team, I'm Janae Nawal saying good night and be safe, everyone.
ownership or production unit of the Verizon Media Group. Beyond the Headlines is a production of ILTV Studios and cannot be reproduced or represented in part or entirety without express written permission of the Verizon Media Group. Beyond the Headlines is the intellectual property of the Verizon Media Group. Copyright 2021.
Alive. Still connected.
A U.S. judge says FTX America does not trust the Bahamian government. We look at what's coming out of that bankruptcy hearing in Delaware. Also tonight, we begin our year in review. It will be a series of shows once a week into the new year on the biggest headlines of 2022. Which story made your list? We are interested in knowing that. Good evening, everyone. This is Beyond the Headlines, brought to you by Alive. I'm Shanique Miller. Welcome to the show. Sam Bankman-Fried's Bahamian attorney says they will do whatever is necessary to get him out of prison, as they do not want him sitting in the Fox Hill facility until his next court appearance in February 2023. The United States is seeking SBF's extradition. SBF potentially faces 115 years imprisonment in the United States. Prosecutors for the Southern District of New York allege that SBF conspired with others to commit wire fraud, commodities fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. And so, as the world continues to watch this play out, and SBF and his legal team use the time until February 8th to build their case against extradition, we look at what's being reported so far and how this could all potentially play out. Well, we're going to jump right in with our Hot Topics panel and special guests. Please welcome to the show attorney and politician Branville McCartney and BTH contributor and correspondent Levin Miller. Good evening to you both, gentlemen. Good evening to you and welcome to the show.
Hello, Shanique.
Good evening.
A member of SBF's legal team, Crystal Roll, KC, says her client will not sit in prison and chill until February as they're exploring options to get him released. Now, let's look at that, you all. This is this case is being scrutinized on every level. We're going to get to what's being said in that Delaware hearing in a minute. But what do you think would be the road to getting him released? If that can happen, of course, I just want to point out here that we are simply providing speculation and opinions on this evolving story. And so let's just begin. And you know what? I'll start with the lawyer in the room. How about that? How reasonable is it for the legal team to seek his release? And if they're successful, what is that release likely to include in terms of stipulations?
They won't be successful in getting him released.
You say they will not be successful?
No, the KC is talking foolishness. That won't happen. She's obviously speaking to hear herself, I would imagine.
Wait a minute, how is she speaking to hear herself? This man, I'm sure, is paying top dollar.
And that's why she's talking. So every time she talks, that's what I would imagine. But she knows better than that. She's a KC. And to get him released out of jail is going to be very unlikely. Very, very unlikely.
Well, this is quite interesting. When you talk, I want you to look right at camera too, Branville McCartney, because this is quite interesting. Levin, what do you say? How do you agree with Mr. McCartney here, the learned attorney, that Casey is really just talking to you here herself?
Well, I slimly share Brand's position. I will say this though. If you're going to try to get him out of prison, I imagine step one would be call Damian Gomez.
I think, Levin, a little birdie told me that call has been made.
Yeah. That would be step one. I imagine any maneuver outside of that he's the only, on my way into studio, Shanique, I thought about if I were SBF in the position that I was in, remanded to Her Majesty's prison under the auspices of the good acting commissioner, what would be my next step, right? Because here is what is the fact. The fact is that he has been remanded. The fact is, as far as I am aware up to this point, there has been no emergency bail application made before a Supreme Court anywhere. The fact is that most lawyers or most people that were following the case imagined that would have been the automatic step. We saw the maneuver by the by the very same chief magistrate that ensured that he would go to jail even if it was only for one night. And here we are about 48 hours later, still no breeze blowing about any sort of an emergency application for bail before a Supreme Court of any kind. And I don't know. So he has gone in the right direction with a Casey, right? So he needs someone senior enough to be able to stand before the face of court and take the emergency application in a time that wouldn't be 2 weeks. I think he got the wrong KC. If you know Damien number, get him on the phone.
No, but I'll
Remember
tell you
that,
this,
Damien responsible for the Japanese, Shane Gibson,
a whole number of
and one other bunch of people who beat the odds. So, what her name is? Crystal Roll?
Crystal Roll.
Never heard it.
But gentlemen, I'll tell you this now, and I will go out and say this, and because I've been reliably informed, the SBF and his present team are building out a major sort of NBA superstar type team. I shouldn't use that, right? But what I'm saying is they have, as far as I understand, and I stand to be corrected, contacted Damien Gomez. We will wait and see exactly if indeed that does play out. And they also have contacted a number of very senior accountants and a whole number of other things because they're truly building this case. And who knows what's going to happen if he is released. But of course, building the case to fight the extradition is the ultimate goal. But I want to ask you, Bran, I've seen it, social media is like everybody got an opinion. And this one was said, and I wondered, you said just now that she has to be talking foolishness because she knows better. Okay, why? Because people are of the opinion that if persons accused of murder can get bail almost immediately, why not SBF?
Yeah, this is a different ball game, and I certainly don't agree with the fact that people can get bail on murder. That's a whole different story. But in this particular situation, this is an international case. And we have to bear that in mind. For Free to get bail, that you can imagine what that will do in relation to our reputation in this
which already
jurisdiction, which has taken a hit.
Yeah.
So the lawyer, she's being paid to say that. And she's been, I would imagine, trying to give her client some comfort, making these promises. But they say, a promise is always a comfort to a fool.
Okay, that part.
There you go.
Yeah, that part. Okay, well, let's just continue looking at, what's happening right now. So Acting Commissioner of the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services, Dawn Clare, says SBF is being treated like any other inmate and is receiving his medication on time, and that his vegan meal preferences, of course he's vegan, is being accommodated as it's nothing new to the prison. They've had one or two people before. Is it in the Bahamas, and I know the answer to this, but just for asking sake, it's in the Bahamas' best interest, gentlemen, and Brian, you kind of almost said this already, that this inmate is treated well, kept safe, and perhaps remain where he is, eh?
Well, Shanique, just to jump on Brian's point, so again, step one, call Damien Gomez, and then call Jesus, right?
You hold on,
call Jesus first.
No, but you gotta make sure Damien. See, we sure Jesus could show up. We gotta make sure Damien will show up for this, right? But outside of that, Shanique, here's what comes to my mind. So there's a school of thought from Marx, right, that says that we are all in a fight for a scarce amount of resources on the planet, right? And so you asked about murderers being allowed bail, right? Let's be fair. So the murder in this country has been interesting over the last decade or so, right? We're going on about 15 years of it. But largely, right, the people that have been murdered is spooky them, right? When you talk about $36 billion, right? You then have to ask yourself, what is the value? What do they classify as the value of life, right? And I would tell you that there are a few people in the world whose lives will ever reach the amount of 36 billion. Now, their families will feel differently, but when you consider the amount of, remember during the pandemic, there was this whole talk, Brian, you may have remembered it, between life and livelihood. When you think about the amount of livelihoods that are going to die.
No, that have already.
Then the question becomes, is this man's malfeasances not akin to the murder of multiple people then? You see, and so that is why I believe that any court sitting roundly or squarely in its head will consider that. And if you remember when the learned Chief Justice took the adjournment, she said that she needed to go and immerse herself in the law. She needed to go and fully clothe her mind in the intention of how the law is to be interpreted. And I thought she was masterful at doing so.
She was meticulous on Tuesday.
Very, very thoughtful, very, very contemplative. And I think that like our national anthem says, this was a wonderful opportunity for the world to see and mark the manner of our bearing. That we're not all pirates, as the little white man said on the TV.
Little white man, let me tell you
in the
something.
Senate hearing.
Levin, I want you to pick this up, then let Brian jump in, because you're talking about, of course, I'll tell you this. Yes, Chief Magistrate Joanne Ferguson Pratt was incredible. Brian, as a member of the fraternity, you perhaps can just add to it and better speak to it of how thoughtful, comprehensive, meticulous she was on Tuesday.
I think she was very, very, very meticulous in her deliberations, and actually did the legal profession and the judiciary proud, quite frankly, because bottom line, and the Bahamas, because internationally people have been looking at this and looking at every process that's been going through, and I think the good magistrate was very, very much on point and ought to be commended, quite frankly. I just want to go and add something that Levan was saying in connection with the lives. I mean, that's an excellent point in terms of the lives that's going to be destroyed and as a result of the actions of...
Brian, that have been reportedly, because, pardon me, Brian, I'll let you continue your point. I just want to interject here and say, on Tuesday during our continuous coverage here on Eyewitness News, there was a lady that flew from Miami reportedly, and she told our team that, listen, she came, the minute she heard he was arrested, she made travel plans and landed here that Tuesday morning and went straight to the courts. And she talked about friends and family who lost everything and who are now homeless, according to her. And so Levan's point bears out, certainly.
Absolutely. But just to add on to that, I'm talking about this bail situation. In those circumstances, it is perhaps for his safety to remain in jail.
Yeah. There's a common thread between bail and living.
I'm going to tell you, and you see what's been happening many times. People come out, they've committed a particular crime, murder or something like that. They come out after a while and they become a statistic. So he may wish not to call Damien Gomez in those circumstances.
Maybe not for that, but certainly for the fight that he wants to put up. He's putting up to fight the extradition.
And Shanique, just on a lighter note, I mean, this administration is taking quite a hit with regards to whether or not some of them may have cozied this investor a little more than we do most investors. I don't think there's anything foul there. I mean, the man was worth $36 billion. That's not every day, somebody jumps off a plane with that kind of money in their bankroll. So if a government is kind to that person, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with it. But, on the bright side, they almost can defund the marketing budget for tourism, because I assure you that the Bahamas is glaring in the spotlight, the TV screens, the radio sets, the handheld sets of almost every person in every home in every country on this planet.
In every country, yes.
So
we just need to pan a couple times to the beach.
Indeed.
Not to trivialize.
Drive him along the picturesque view towards the court.
And gentlemen, I want to, Levan kind of led us here a minute ago before I asked you, Brian, to just talk about the performance of Chief Magistrate. But let's just talk about, why do you suppose, for example, the bankruptcy hearing that's happening right now in Delaware, and something that's vexed and also startled many Bahamians, and of course many Bahamians are already skeptical about, just as you all said, where our officials stand in this. But it is the FTX new CEO, John Ray, telling the hearing that he does not trust the Bahamas government. Of course, their desire is to have the government and our courts just basically stand down and hand over SBF to the United States so that they can prosecute him. Was the comment of not trusting the government warranted, or is it warranted? You all, of course, this is still unfolding, information still being released, but Is it warranted? Your thoughts initially? Brian, maybe you jump in first.
No, I don't. I think I don't know the facts and the basis he would say that, but certainly I don't think it's warranted at this time from the information that I would have. If he said something like that, he should have gone on and say the reasons why.
Something, yeah.
The reasons why he doesn't trust the Bahamian government. But just by saying a blanket, he doesn't trust the Bahamian government and the circumstances, really doesn't hold water without having anything to back up what he's saying.
Well, what he said was that he believes that any winding up information would find its way into the hands of the regulatory body of the Bahamas. And I mean, I don't see what the problem would be there either. They are the regulatory body of the Bahamas. What's his name? John what?
John Ray.
John Ray. I think it boils down in its purest form, Shanique, like I said earlier, to white peopling. I think that this very white man.
Even surely there's nothing to do with race here.
Also, you believe.
And looking
See,
at the third.
you know, until you consider how they address us in the world, right? So there are developed nations, right? Then there are developing nations, and then there are small island developing nations, which is kind of the lower in the tier. I quoted Marx earlier, right? We are all in an all-out fight for the limited or scarce resources on the face of the planet. Those people do not necessarily think that they ought to come and bow reverently before the instruments of state, right? Which the regulatory body is. And what is also laughable to me is that John Ray, right, makes this statement on the heel of the former CEO saying that the reason he moved his company to the Bahamas was because it was so very well regulated. Yeah. And this was the absolute perfect place for a company like FTX that was so state-of-the-art and trying to be on such the cutting edge of technology. Well, John, all right, you could go talk to your little former CEO and find out from him where he get that from. Until such time, Shanique, I don't wish to address it as anything more than what I originally addressed it as: white peopling.
What does that mean, though? White people.
I just told you. I don't assume people like John believes that a Negro Chief Justice ought to have SBF remanded to prison. I don't believe people like John believes that a Negro regulator ought to have any hand in or enforcement towards any meaningful repercussions that this company will face. And I don't necessarily believe John thinks that ahead of preferred shareholders and companies that may have bought stocks, which I imagine in my wildest dream would largely be powered by the white faces that we've seen, the Tom Bradys, the Bill Clintons, and those people. I don't assume that he believes that 1,500 ordinary Bahamians, largely Negroes, I imagine, because I know 1,500 Negroes that I know that could come up with $100 million. But
well, obviously they did. But they have that. I tell you.
I don't assume that makes him happy either. And because he is where he is, I believe he's letting his white show a little bit.
So he is white peopling. Okay, listen, many Bahamians, and if we could just explain this a bit, I've seen this all over social media. They even say this with a bit of ire. How can SBF have Bahamian residency? What game are officials playing? This is what many have been asking. Let's explain how that works in this country or any other.
Well, he has Bahamian residency based on the fact that he purchased a significant amount of property in the Bahamas. So that was basically based on a commercial application in terms of the value of the property that he's purchased in Bahamas. So in any event, whether it's SBF or anybody doing that type of transaction, residency is normally given.
And that's
any country, it's nothing out of the ordinary in terms of him getting Bahamian residency.
And Bahamians make me laugh, Shanique, because, you know, Bahamians, we all love. I mean, we are we're smitten by the life and legacy of Saul Kersnaw. Wasn't he given special residence considerations? I think at one point he even became a citizen, if I'm not mistaken. These things happen for people with money. It's not unusual. And it is Saul Kersnaw, people like him, that have made other Bahamians quite comfortable with their nest egg. We didn't have a problem with it for Saul. I imagine that had this man not found himself in such an imbroglio, he would eventually, like, where is the tall guy that was running around here in the name of FTX? people like them may have been living very comfortable lives. I know people that were promised very, very, very lavish salaries if they came on board with FTX, etc. So,
Listen,
I imagine this guy.
If I heard and was informed, not confirmed, but that the gardener was making around 60.
I have friends of mine that are skilled at arms that told me they had been offered 3 times their salary with housing allowance and car. And if they wanted to, they could have a poodle. but I mean, hey, the guy had brought an enormous amount of wealth, right? More than I've never heard of an investor in my lifetime, even as high as the Saul Kersners of the world, trying to bring a human value of $36 billion to the shore. And the boy's 30 years old. He has a long life ahead of him, right? Maybe that's why they're giving him the 115-year possible sentence. But, Shanique, outside of the misfeasances, this was supposed to be a match made in heaven.
It really was. Yeah. It really was. And well, let's just move on, right? So Arawak X, a local crowdfunding company, is calling for whistleblower legislation. Just by hearing it, you can kind of almost sort of just deduce what it means, but I, for those of you can speak to it between Broadfield and Leven, then let's just do it to avert future FTX blowups. The views on this all over the place. There are some in the financial services industry that feel the fallout for the Bahamas will be major, while others feel that this is a lesson, as you talked about, leaving a beautiful match made in heaven when FTX came calling. Then is this a lesson we can learn with a whistleblower legislation and law in place that would help us further put our feet and really sort of be able to grab hold of this crypto space and crypto industry that's still new anywhere, and really become a force to be reckoned with the whistleblower legislation in place?
I think the whistleblower legislation would be helpful. Practically, though, whether or not it would be used effectively is another story. Having it there and putting it into legislation would be helpful. But really, would it be something that would be utilized to help in the regulations of these financial institutions?
Right, and that's what I want to know. Is it exactly as it sounds? You blow the whistle if you see something.
You blow the whistle. You tell if you see something untoward. You alert the authorities, and the law would provide there's no repercussions coming towards you as a result of you alerting them, i.e. the company you're talking on cannot sanction you for doing it. And it's supposed to be anonymous in any event. But the thing is, for that type of legislation to work, you're going to need persons to whistleblow.
Yeah.
Right? And the question is, would they do that in the first place? So it's good, like I said, to have the legislation, but whether or not it'll be effective is a whole different story.
Many feel as, Leven, I want you to add, but I want you to also add on to this, because many feel as though, listen, this jurisdiction is already heavily regulated. In fact, to the point of squeezing the financial services industry to where it's at right now. I imagine maybe the crypto industry is connected to the financial services industry. Would that whistleblower act or law just be something that further frustrates investors?
Well, Shanique, these are the kinds of conversations where I realize that smart people get into rooms and try to convince each other who is the smartest person in the room, right? So to my layman mind, a whistleblower act, Shanique, while it sounds shimmery and shiny, will probably amount to nothing more than a condom in the back pocket of a scheming person. Like, it's going to be largely ornamental. It's only there as a suggestion. No one's really taking it out to use it. You get to say, hey,
we have that.
I have mine. And then rest it on the drawer and proceed with what it is you have to do. I don't think that because there's so many questions, right? A man like SBF has access to $32 or $36 billion, right? Are you going to blow the whistle on him and have a government give you a plaque and a medal from a dead monarch, or are you going to let him know? Like, is it more luxurious for you to blackmail him, right? Because there's no penalty for that, than it is for you to blow the whistle and make yourself a target, make your family a target. And I hear the whole anonymity thing, right, Brand? This is the Bahamas. All us is cousins. All us is cousins.
Yeah, that's,
right?
I know, right?
That's why I say whether or not this would be
It only anonymous until it against my political organization, my pastor, or my person. And then all of a sudden, I got to make sure this story or who leaked this story comes out. So the anonymity thing, I think, is a very, very dangerous tightrope walk. Put the legislation, you can legislate anything, you know, like how we have the left turn, right? It will only be tasseled in my mind and nothing that will be substantive.
Yeah.
Guys, before we wrap up this first segment, I want to just shift because we're talking about everything that's topical and trending in this top segment. Shoppers warned, you know, hey, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, the tree behind me. But shoppers are being warned that don't go broke for Christmas. I mean, inflation is still very much an issue. It's still obviously affecting many, many people in many industries, etc. Your dollar isn't quite that dollar anymore. I hear the break telling me to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about inflation and in particular Christmas and the fact that, you know, I feel the warning certainly was a sort of a very good idea to send out there. It was sent by Gowan Bow. Are people listening? Do they realize about inflation that Rupert Roberts warned just recently that the prices in the food store this Christmas will continue to be exactly what they are? And so we're going to talk about that and hear what Bran McCartney and Levan Miller have to say about that and a whole lot more when we start the year in review. Stay exactly where you are. This is Beyond the Headlines, brought to you by Alive. Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines, brought to you by Alive. We are, of course, talking about the biggest stories and the most trending stories today, and we have just done that in the first segment. We are just going to pick up on the Christmas shopping warning in a minute, and then, of course, we will go into the biggest stories of 2022. You guys ready? You guys ready to kind of have a look back and see?
Mm-hmm, sure.
Okay, well, let's just do that. But let's just talk about Gowan Bow, a leading financial mind, a banker, telling people, listen, inflation is still a reality. Don't go wild December now, this month, for Christmas, spending, and not consider January, which traditionally already is a challenging month for a number of people. Imagine if you are already feeling the pinch. And Brian, you want to jump in and perhaps either add to what he's saying or somehow just add your own 2 cents?
I think it was good advice by Mr. Bo of warning Bahamians to take it easy when it comes down to shopping. But that statement says, don't go broke. The thing is, Bahamians already broke. They're already broke. Yeah. And, but his advice should be well taken and well accepted. But what Bahamians listen? Bahamians like to shop. Whether it's here or you see them in the airplane going to Miami, I think we have to be very prudent. It's been a rough year, quite frankly, dealing specifically with the increase of prices. Taxes that we have being levied against us, impending increase of electricity, which was high in the first place, but is going to be increased again. Fuel charges and what have you. So I think his advice ought to be well taken and acted upon.
Levin, you think we listening?
Well, I would say this. If Gowan ever stops being an economist, I hope he becomes a pilot. I don't know anybody more safe than Gowan. It was Gowan Bowl that said that, we ought to brace for a second recession earlier in the year. And he and I, we've bantered about it. We've come from a pandemic, Gowan. That was as recess as you could recess, right? Don't go broke, we've been there. Right? Like we've been there and lived there for 2 years. People were standing on lines, remember that? For $20 checks in Nassau Village, 4 o'clock in the morning, believe that or not. And so, when you say don't go broke, if my knowledge of economics works, one of the worst ways to try to protect yourself in a recession is to hoard money, because then you cause the economy to slow, and if the economy slows, then there are pieces of money that would have been in the economy spinning that people that exist in a realm beneath you can no longer absorb, and now you probably got people down there dying when all they would have been doing was starving, right? So I hear Gowan, right? I'm going to invite him and the people that I believe have some money to please don't follow his advice, right?
Well, I'm sure he's not speaking to those six figures and above people.
Oh, so you mean me?
Yes. Not you, because I think you're 6 figures as well. But no, I said that in jest. But what I'm saying is I really don't think Gowan is speaking to a certain income bracket. I think he's speaking to the people just who you talked about initially. When you said those people were hurting during the pandemic, those people are still. You see the complaints all over the place. I know Bahamians like to somehow just talk to hear themselves oftentimes, and so they can get more. But legitimately, there are people. The Salvation Army is noticing longer lines, and people who never came before come in. Various family islands, the same thing. People are still unemployed or underemployed. And so I think he's speaking to those people who could very well redefine Christmas.
You know who else he's talking to, Shanique? He's talking to people that have been locked in their houses for the last 2 Christmases. He's talking to people that haven't seen their cousins and haven't seen their grandmothers, who have had grandfathers die on them, who've had mothers and fathers die on them. And if the pandemic taught us nothing, it was except the Lord watch the house, the watchman watch, but only in vain. And we're all gonna die anyway. Don't let the stress of money kill you. And so, I mean, in all things, exercise good judgment. But I think that message of gloom and doom is certainly not something Bahamians want to deal with this year. We've dealt with it for the last 2 years. We're happy that we're all alive. We're happy that we're all counted. And it is the job of a government to figure out its social safety nets. Don't tell me not to spend the money. Require of those responsible for the making of the policies that they make policies, so that when I find myself right or left, there is a... And that is largely what...
Meaning you, Joe Blow. You mean you, Joe Blow, don't have a certain responsibility? Everything must be the government?
No, you have a responsibility. Don't take it out of context.
What legislation and policy are introducing?
You have it. I don't control the price of inflation. I don't control the percentage of tariffs. I don't control caps in margins. The government controls all of that. What I'm saying is, right, do not starve if you buy a 5-pound package of rice versus a 3-pound package of rice, that will not add to the quality of your life in any direction. Do not get yourself to the point that you loathe yourself because you are now making the decision of whether it is unreasonable to decide that I want to buy a ham for Christmas like I've had all of my life. It is not unreasonable for me to want to put Vitamilk in my fridge for Christmas.
Can you afford that ham? Can you afford that turkey?
And so I'm saying to you,
that's the question.
Exercise good judgment. I ain't no ham is here, Brian.
Look like chicken beef menu. Let's go around.
It might be chicken foot.
Listen, I got chickens. I got chickens in my yard. I grow chickens.
It might be chicken foot.
They looking extra good now.
They're nice and juicy.
They're nice and juicy. They big. They're looking extra good, especially after seeing the prices of that turkey.
I saw a turkey just yesterday in the food store, like half. And even, one time ago, you see the big turkey like this, half. That turkey, just half of it. I see a piece of leg and go up and must he come up at the shoulder. That turkey is about over $20. Just that same half right there, you know?
But Shanique, since Bran is growing chickens, he looks like a breast man. Bran, I've got potatoes at home and some sweet peppers. No. All I want him to do is make me an undertaking that when he slaughters his chicken, he will send me the foot because I really like myself some good chicken foot sauce.
Chicken foot sauce.
Absolutely.
What, you mean that the thing, like the fingers?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. That's good.
Yeah, man. Shanique, if you get chicken foot sauce and homemade bread.
I have that almost every 2 weeks.
Oh, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
That's how I know Bran saves.
Yeah, man. Well, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Well, it depends.
There's something else. I tell you, these some island fellas. Let's move. Listen. So we're gonna now step into our year in review segment, and this is where we talk about the biggest stories of 2022, the issues that just lingered and caused people to become very angry or interested and involved and engaged. So what's on your list? Well, here's where we're gonna start: immigration. I certainly think that many would agree. Immigration became a very serious issue and a major point of contention for Bahamians this year. The issue also raised, the issue of Crown land and access to Crown land. And so, gentlemen, let's start right there. Immigration reached its peak, and I think it certainly there was a group leading it. The protests, the light was shined on it, and then of course when Abaco started having issues, both members of parliament, if you all can remember, talked about they feel almost overwhelmed and that they're being closed in on because of immigration, whether it's illegal or I don't know, whatever it is. Just this week, residents of Harbour Island, in fact, I'll tell you this, the member of parliament there is really trying to sort of clean up Harbour Island and do a great job there. He had a raid, I think it was late last week, and I think another one maybe a few days ago. That is Sylvanus Petty, but residents of Harbour Island still want that to be given stronger attention to because they feel as though on an island, and you all know the size of Harbour Island, I think it's 2 streets, that there are hundreds of Haitians there, whether they're illegal or not. And here's what I'm understanding, and I'll give you both an opportunity to jump in a minute. I am understanding a quote from one resident that, listen, it is an issue there on the island, which everybody admits, but these people have work permits from Abaco, and the other island escapes me at the moment, but those are for those islands, they feel. Somehow they ended up on Harbour Island where the economy is booming and jobs are in abundance to start working. And so, gentlemen, how is this immigration? Obviously, this is something that's going to go into 2023 and be a part of 2023. Let's just look at how this played out this year and how Bahamians became angry all over again. Brian, as a former Minister of Immigration, you talk about it, about just what you witnessed this year, how the tensions are rising, how Bahamians are getting to the place where they're making very bold steps. You saw many of them go on Crown land and say, man, if the Haitians could do it and build whole communities, then this is what we do and do.
I think what brought it to a head, because illegal immigration has been a problem for many, many years. It's not just started. It's been a very serious problem in this country, but I think what brought it to head this year would have been the fact that a lot of illegals were going on Crown land and being allowed to stay there and building up the shanty towns again. When in fact, after the unfortunate hurricane of Dorian, for example, that really cleaned the slate, so to speak, to ensure that the government of the day can ensure that the shanty towns are not redeveloped. Well, we saw that didn't happen, and they are back and in full bloom. For the life of me, I don't understand how could that have
Not just
happened.
back in a full-blown former Minister of Immigration. It is said, I think it started at about 50 acres. I could be wrong. Now that, especially if we're talking about Abaco, which I know we are, is over 200 acres of inhabited land of shanty towns.
Yes, I don't understand it. And there must be political will to deal with illegal immigration in this country. And I've said that for many, many, many years. And to allow the shanty towns to come back again, that is a complete derelict of duty on behalf of the administration of the day responsible for that. And what has gotten Bahamians upset now is because you do have a lot of the illegals occupying Crown land. And when Bahamians try to occupy or try to get Crown land, it's denied. You have persons on the Crown land that they have running water for some reason. They have electricity. And when it's difficult for Bahamians to do that, they have structures there that certainly should not be there. But a Bahamian, you try do something, they come in to close you and lock you down or break it down. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. And it's been like that. And it seems as if it's going to continue to be like that because we seem not to have the political will to do what is necessary to rid our country of this vaccine problem.
The math on it, Shanique, kind of is daunting to me. It overwhelms me trying to calculate it, right? Former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham said that not hundreds, thousands of people are presumed dead after the washing away of the shantytown in Abaco, right? That is former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham. If Jesus washed all the people out to sea, right? Then, and Dr. Raymond King and his men have been doing, a yeoman's task down there with the apprehension of illegal migrants to date. I haven't heard of any illegal boat landings for at least 10 months now, right? For at least 10 months. There have been no illegal boat landings.
Where were you?
There have been apprehensions.
Okay,
there have not been any illegal.
Don't mix it up.
But that means every.
Mr. Former Marine, there have been a number because Haiti is having issues.
Yes, but every head of them that have come from Haiti that haven't gone into Davy Jones's lockup, we have accounted for. All right, which means they can't. Well, according to the news, which means they can't be building shanty towns anywhere because they should be at the Carmichael Road Detention Center. The question for me then is, well, who the hell is this building the shanty town in Abaco? Because all of them were washed out to sea. Where did this new plethora of illegal immigrants come from? I'm hard pressed, Brian, if you understand where I'm going, to figure out if there aren't any Haitian landings. If Dr. King and his men are rounding up as many of them as they can, and if God washed the rest out to sea, then where these new Haitian come from?
How God do that?
Well, who are arguing this?
Well, listen.
Leave it at you irk me. The way you just.
Listen. I failed the math PGCSE 3 times, Brian. I'm not afraid to say that. And mathematically,
you too?
Yeah. I
know about that.
You can't use me as a math precursor, right? But mathematically, Shanika just doesn't add up.
That tells you then that people coming in here daily,
absolutely,
and getting in these communities.
Absolutely.
How?
Where?
They swim in from Haiti. That's how they come in.
No, they're coming.
Go, Brian.
Sorry.
Go.
They're coming in. They're coming in, and that is where these persons come from. What you hear about the apprehensions. That's the ones you know about. The ones you don't hear about is because they didn't apprehend them and they're here.
But there's no sign of their boats on the bay. There is no sign. So how are they getting here, Brian? That is the question I have. Remember.
By the way, I'm telling you, I also understand they're coming in by plane now. They
then they wouldn't be illegal.
Listen. They come in. They come in.
Stay your time. Yes.
They come in through the airport. They're coming on the water, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be in sloops, as they say. Many of them.
They come as cargo on free boats.
Being smuggled in. Right? So that is where, persons come from. And unfortunately, the fact that they're there, I think the government ought to really nip it in the bud and deal with the situation as opposed to letting us.
But to my friends from
What
Harbour
a disgrace. Jesus,
to
what
my
a
friends
disgrace.
from Harbour
My
Island, you know,
God.
I like the way they like to pretend like that ain't in the Bahamas, right?
I know, right? or in Lutheran.
Them and my friends from Abaco, somehow they assume that must be Abaco, United States of America, because they act as though if you have a working permit, right, to work at it, and Ms. Brian can correct me, as long as you're not working outside the scope of your working permit.
No. Brian,
Work permits do not say. So are you telling me that if I have somebody under my employ that works for me and I get a contract in Inagua, I can't carry my Donnie Jean child behind me? You've got to be joking.
Brian, talk, please, because as a work permit only.
It is a work permit for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
And legal for an island, or particular island, or job, or something.
For a particular job.
But yeah, a work permit is, you normally get it unless it's a general work permit.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a general work permit, then that means you can do any type of job, right? But if you get a work permit, say for a handyman, right? That is the only job that person's supposed to do.
Correct.
But he could do that
anywhere in the
Bahamas.
Correct.
Because the work permit is issued
for the Commonwealth
of the Bahamas, not for New Providence or
residents of
Abaco
residents of Harbour Island. I hope you all heard this. And this is a former minister of immigration.
And besides, Shanique, where am I supposed to leave my Filipino maid when I go to Exuma on vacation? You want me to leave little Filipina and tell her she can't come? That's not gonna happen. I'm taking her with me. So she has to be able to work when I go to Exuma. She has to be able to work when I go to Abaco to vacation. She has to be able to work when I go to Ilu to the vacation.
How does someone traveling with you all place like that?
She is my housekeeper. Why would she not travel with me?
Oh.
Thanks, Brian. That's what I want to know. What that about?
What's that about? That's for another show.
For a
little later on in the evening.
For a little later on in the evening. The after show at night. Because I don't know why there's so much traffic behind you everywhere.
Tell my friends from Harbour Island. Don't.
Okay, but since you so big, bold, and brave, speak to the people in
Harbour
Spanish
Island,
Wells.
listen.
No, wait. See, because they black in Harbour Island. The people of Spanish Wells, and listen, excellent. More power to you all. But here's what they have done, and they have done so with the stamp of approval from the Minister of Works. They have developed a moratorium. They do have a little Haitian village, shantytown, but they said, what y'all ain't gonna do is spread around here and grow and figure y'all come in here to somehow be really, really forcible, or, to say, well, y'all got this major. So just several weeks ago, they have been given the go-ahead. I think it's something to do with commonage land, etc. There's a whole committee set up. But basically, in English, what it is, they have stopped any new construction, addition, whatever it is, to prevent that community from growing. How is it that they could have been given that kind of power to basically take charge of their community, their Spanish Wells, which is still Eleuthera, and the people of Harbour Island scratching their head and vexed?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this: any law you enforce on anyone around you, you have enforced on yourself. So if they can't build over there, you can't build over here. You're not disadvantaging them in any way. You are.
No, even that's strictly
you are disadvantaging the entire
what is the
community.
area called in Harbour and
the
Spanish Wells? The area in
Spanish
Spanish Wells that is the shanty town. I forgot the name of it. Not Russell Island. It's another area. Blackwood.
Yeah. But that's not the way I read it, Shanique. The way I read
I had the guys on here on the show to do an interview.
But you're talking about a piece of land about the size of this table, right? How much obstruction to construction can they possibly do without it affecting them? You see what I'm saying? So any regulation or policy you put in place on a piece of land as small as that, I imagine that at some point it's going to affect you as well. So whatever rule they choose to live under, then let them govern themselves. I don't have no problem with Spanish Wells, them doing that.
Brian, is Spanish Wells just wiser than anybody else?
I don't know.
Or they even say they put handcuffs on themselves.
It could be a two-way thing in terms of putting handcuffs on themselves because of the size of the island, but I would think the intention was to stop the growth of the shanty towns. I don't know. I can't answer why only Spanish Wells
has been
were
given
able to
that
do
go ahead. Yeah.
It's just like there's not an illegal immigration problem in Long Island.
No, but I understand recently they found a Haitian. Didn't you all? Did I? Or was that I dreamt it?
One.
And I don't know if I think that person
Is that person still wrong?
No, I don't think so. But yeah,
See?
so you're
So,
right.
so to answer your question, the policies that's carried out in Long Island from illegal immigration, that should be the policies used and directed throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, because they don't have a problem.
Huh?
They don't have a problem.
They don't have a problem.
They said they don't have a problem.
They don't have a problem.
And I remember when I was in charge, I said, man, like this country needs to do what they doing in Long Island in terms of the illegal immigration.
Right. Now, but Brian, did you and your man at the time scour every bush in Long Island to make sure there are not some hidden communities, eh?
You didn't need immigration to do that. The people of Long Island would do that for you.
Oh, okay.
They got the immigration watch. Something I tried to implement actually in New Providence.
So like Crime Watch, they have an immigration watch.
They got immigration watch.
You're on a tight ship down now.
Yes, man. You can.
Gentlemen, I want to talk about, we talked about earlier about inflation. Maybe I'll just kind of just go over all that and just jump to one part of it. This Grocers Association, first time ever we've seen, I guess we've even known there was an association, but unfolded some months ago recently when they started fighting back against the government too. It's something that the Prime Minister wanted done just in the interim to bring relief in this inflation period or however long it lasts, so that grocers can keep prices at a friendly level. Well, we saw recently, which was no more than a week ago or so, Rupert Roberts say, listen, y'all, listen, understand what you're going to be paying for grocery. You perhaps want to do that first, then go shopping for something else, but make sure you get your food because the prices are going to be exactly as they are, which is quite heightened. When do we think we'll see this end? There was some real harsh and brave talk and talk that they sounded strong. I think just last week from the Economic Affairs Minister about, listen, the law will be enforced. We haven't heard anything after Rupert said what he said. We haven't heard anything about any price control officers going to various stores, whether here or the Family Islands, to ensure that prices are at where they should be. When do we think we're going to see this standoff between government and the Grocers Association end?
I'm very happy that you talked about that because I think the better question is how long we can let Rupert and his friends break the law. The law is the law. So you comply with the law and then you make a case, whether before a Supreme Court or whomever, about the injustices of the law, and then you seek retribution. I think that's how law-abiding countries work, right? You don't just say, I won't comply with the law. I happen to be in the ground transportation business, Shanique. We have been, on our backs, with our feet flailing, crying out to Minister Jo Beth Colby about the effects of COVID-19 on our industry, which, believe this or not, even though the government doesn't buy a single piece of equipment, doesn't buy a single piece of maintenance item, doesn't pay for a teaspoon of the fuel, they get to regulate straight across the board, whether it is omnibus, taxi, or livery, our rates. And we've said to them, listen, these rates are rates we can no longer live under. Brand them, they sound shocked, but I've been living under a controlled margin of income and a controlled margin of profit my entire 11 years in this industry. And I am not man enough, right? And although I leave home every day and I ensure that I have both my spectacles and my testicles, I cannot determine that because I've spent $200,000 on this piece of equipment, I'm not giving a ride to anybody for less than $2 a head. If I did that, you know what the government of the Bahamas would do to me? They would call me into road traffic. They would relieve me of my franchise. They would be able to justify it by saying, you are a franchise holder of the government of the Bahamas, and as a consequence, you are not the owner of this. You are holding it in tender for the government. And I will end up with buses parked in my yard that I cannot use. Why? Because I didn't obey the law. Then tell me, please, what makes Rupert Roberts and friends any different?
Well, I'm going to say slightly different with the grocers and, of course, the pharmacy association. The pharmacies had an issue.
But the pharmacy, they totally stood up, yes.
They had an issue with that. But I'll tell you the difference there, Levan. Y'all are asking for an increase, right? What the government is doing with the grocers and with the pharmacies as well, they were asking for them to decrease their prices. And what the government ought to have done prior to all of this was whenever they decide to make some type of policy decision, they ought to deal with the stakeholders in that particular realm prior to coming out and making certain decisions. Quite frankly, what the government wanted to do, especially with the pharmacies, was unsustainable. Unsustainable. And it's still a stretch, having agreed with the government for a certain period of time that prices would be reflected in a certain way. It's still a stretch, right? Mr. Roberts and the grocers, I understand. Look, if you try and stay in business, it's not that they want prices to be high, you know.
Sure.
But they have to buy the product, right?
At the present price.
At a certain price.
But Brian, if I blow your same trumpet, right, and please.
Hello, I am Denise Pratt on behalf of the Bahamas Alzheimer's Association. I have been told to everything there is a season. I have also been told that seasons change. Well, there's no place where this truth rings more prominently than when we consider the aging process. The Bahamas, like many countries around the world, has an aging population that is concerned not only about growing old gracefully, but also thriving as we age. The Bahamas Alzheimer's Association is an organization that has taken up the mantle to provide support to Bahamians to help them successfully navigate through the various challenges that they face, especially as they assist their loved ones with dementia and Alzheimer's. It is a disease that is often misunderstood. I spoke with Dr. Indira Grimes, who serves as the head of gerontology at the Sandilands Rehabilitation Center. She is also director of the Bahamas Alzheimer's Association. I asked her to explain exactly what is dementia and what is Alzheimer's.
Dementia is really an umbrella term for a clinical syndrome where there is impairment in memory, language, judgment, and processing of information, such that there is impairment in one's ability to carry out their daily functions. Alzheimer's, however, is just a type of dementia. It is actually the most common type. It accounts for 60 to 80% of all the cases of dementia that are diagnosed worldwide. The state of dementia in this country is quite serious. Based on the limited data we have, we see that the number of new cases of dementia is steadily increasing, as well as use of dementia treatment medication is also increasing. And we know this from our gerontology clinics. We conduct gerontology clinics, and the number of new diagnoses have increased over the last couple of years. And according to the National Insurance Drug Plan, there has been a steady increase in the prescription of dementia-type medications. So that is how we know that it is a problem. We're seeing at least 25% of our older persons present to clinic with the complaint of symptoms related to dementia.
The question is always asked, how do we avoid getting dementia? Or how do we avoid getting Alzheimer's?
There are many risk factors for dementia. Unfortunately, one of the risk factors is aging. So as we get older, studies have shown that you can get dementia just from living longer. So 80-year-olds plus have a higher risk of developing dementia than, say, the 60 and 70-year-olds. Also,